Hi everyone. Today I'm painting, I haven't painted these in a long time, and I used to paint a number of these little lotus flowers. I love their leaves, and I drew a little bud here and then this beautiful flower. I put together my palette, and I think this is pretty much what I will go ahead and stick with. So for today's supplies, I'm using my MeiLang paints. As you know, I like those. I'm a Winsor Newton fan, but because I'm painting so much, I have been using this MeiLang palette. It's a little bit more affordable, and I love the vibrant colors. They're actually very creamy, and I'm really happy with them. And then I've got my 2 wells of water. Look at how beautiful the colors are. Just noticing my fingernail polish even matches. That's by Meeden, and I love that water well. It's really, really nice. And I'm using my very favorite Artisto pads, which I love for so many reasons. It's a great quality, and I think for beginners, you know, having them all in this binder, and you can date them once you paint through all the pages, is really great to keep together, kind of like a little journal of your paintings. And if you do want to gift one, you can always, they're perforated, so you can detach it and gift it. And the paper for the price is really nice and thick and textured, and I love it. It's a cold press 140 pound. Okay, my brush I'm using today is my Princeton 8-round Velvet Touch. I might use my 6 long round. That's also a Velvet Touch Princeton if I want to do a little bit of detail for some veining. But for the most part, I think I will use this Princeton 8 Velvet Touch. Okay, the colors I'm using in the MeiLang palette, this is a violet red. This is fresh purple in the MeiLang palette. In Winsor Newton, this could be kind of like a permanent magenta, something like that, and your violet. And then I love this color in the MeiLang palette. It's the light sky blue. I think that's really pretty. And the sap green and the yellow green. Okay, and I believe in Winsor Newton, this would be like a cerulean sap green, and then just a light green. You could take your sap green and add in a little bit of cad yellow or lemon yellow, actually, and I think you'd get those same colors. Okay, I want to, let's see, I'm going to be switching between the purples and the blues for this flower. So what I will do is start in here with my purple. And this is their, actually this is their fresh purple, they call it. It's a really pretty color. It's got some coolness to it. And I'm using, by the way, a lot of the cool color palette, remembering that if it's a warm palette, it's gonna have more of the colors of the sun. And let's just start right here, just using the tip of my brush. I've went into my paint here, and it's that tea consistency, so it's very movable. It's probably, I'd say, 40% pigment, 60% water. Always working from light to dark, although right here I am going in with some dark. Look at how beautiful that color is. I just love the MeiLang palette for that. And for beginners, it's just so great because you don't have to worry about mixing these colors. They just have all the colors right there for you. I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to tap in with that. Now I've got a little bit too much water on my brush. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to tap some of that off. Go back in. And I'm just feathering that edge. I'm going to go into my water, wash and rinse, tap it off, and feather out that hard edge. You want to do this pretty quickly because it can dry very quickly. And then let's just go in for a tiny bit of that, let's see, tiny bit of that blue, that light sky blue, which is such a pretty color. And maybe touch in here and there, let it spread. Now I want to do this before this dries too much, like that. And I just think those two colors together are absolutely gorgeous. Just gonna, always tapping off my brush so I can get rid of that excess water. And look at how beautiful that's blending already. Isn't that so pretty? I love this color. And like I said, the MeiLang palette, I find it comparable to that cerulean color in Winsor Newton. I think it's quite similar. And then I don't want to work on a petal right next to this one because again, it would just all blend in together and we don't want to do that. So let's just start here. I'm going in with a darker value. I'm rinsing my brush, tapping it off so it's just damp, and then touching into that and get that spread, just like that. I'm gonna put in just a touch of the purple and let it kind of do its own spreading, like that. And let's maybe work on this one right here. So I'll go in and pick up that beautiful tea consistency. Isn't that color so yummy? I love that color. So pretty. And go in, let's see, where should we play now? Maybe do some of these back petals. Just going in barely with the tip of my brush. Wash and rinse. Tap off my brush. And let's try and put in a little bit of blue there. Let those blend. Now I'm going to wash and rinse my brush so it's just damp. And now start pulling out like that. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at these purples and blues together. I think they are so pretty. Okay, now since this is pretty dry, you can always tell because it won't be cool to the touch. It'll be pretty dry. Now I see a little bit of shimmer there, but this seems pretty dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and go into this one. Back into that purple using the tip of my brush. And I'm going around this leaf here. So this is also, by the way, an area that I could very easily use that 6 round brush because I'm needing some fine little detail strokes. Now I dipped, by the way, into that blue, and I'm going to feather into that. I just did a tutorial on this technique, and was on combining 2 colors, and I just love it. So I just combined them a little bit. Now I'm going to go in and wash and rinse my brush, tap it off so it's just damp. I'd say tap it off maybe 6-7 times, and I'm going to go in with a damp brush, wash and rinse again, dry it off, and just feather out that edge. Look how beautiful that is. Isn't that pretty? Now you could create some, just pulling out some of those lines if you wanted to. Something like that. All right, I'm gonna go into, I think this one, because this is pretty dry. So let's go back into that purple that I have sitting here. Such a pretty color. So yummy. I always say Quin Magenta is my favorite, but I don't know. I think I'm really liking that color. Okay, I'm gonna turn my paper here so I don't have to put my arm in front of you, and just go in, go around that leaf, just like that, just barely tapping in with the tip of my brush. Okay, wash and rinse, pick up some of that blue, there we go, tap off the excess, and let's go in now and mix those colors. And like I said with the in the tutorial I did on this, I'm gonna wash and rinse my brush, come in with clean water, tap off so it's just damp. You know, the color combinations here are really unlimited. You could do warm colors, you could do cool colors, you could do complementary colors. And look at this beautiful blends I'm getting. Isn't that gorgeous? Now let's just go in and maybe do this leaf in the background. So I'm using my sap green. That's the same in Winsor Newton. And that tea consistency, it's very transparent, just using the tip and then just tapping off the excess. If you're not sure you got it all off, you can always go in on your paper towel and get that excess water off. And I'm gonna come in here just like that. Point, press up to a point. There we go. Look at how beautiful. So remembering that purple and green are complementary colors, they're opposite on the color wheel, so they're really pretty together. And then for my shadows on leaves, I always blend the green and just a touch of the color of the flower. And I think that is so pretty. And I'm just gonna touch in right here because it gives that coherency of the flower and the leaf. So for my darker green areas, like I said, I always mix my green with the color of my flower, and I think that always turns out so pretty. Let's keep working here. I'm going to go in this time with a little bit more of that blue. So picking that up, tapping off, and again, use the paper towel if you're not sure. And let's just go in here with a pretty dark value because we're thinning it out when we do that push and pull. And I'm actually wash and rinse my brush, pick up a tiny bit of that purple, and let's go in with that, holding my brush horizontal. And just letting these look how gorgeous. I love that. Wash and rinse my brush. Tap it off so it's just damp. And actually you could even leave it like it is. You don't have to blend it out. Maybe just a little bit. Like that. Look how beautiful. These two colors are so pretty together. I just love it. I feel like I want to pull that out a little bit too. So I'm just using these little flicks like that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do this petal here. So I will wash and rinse my brush, pick up some of that beautiful fresh purple, tap it off, and let's go in there. Using the tip of my brush, laying down that paint, wash and rinse my brush, and feather this out. So make sure when you're doing this, you're just barely tapping into that color. There you go. Isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh, so pretty. Okay, I think we can do these petals now, or these are leaves actually. So let's pick up some of that green. And just point and press like that. Pick up a little bit more, maybe put a little bit more in my palette. Now this I used a little lighter value, so more water than pigment. Tap it off, and let's go in here. And I'm leaving tiny bits of white space in there. I felt like these were more in the back of the flower showing into the front, and that's why I made them a little bit darker. I'm even going to make them a little bit darker here so that it really looks like they're kind of in the background. There we go. And then let's do our stem. Wash and rinse my brush. Pick up our paint. And using the tip of my brush, just creating that petal, that stem. And you can use a little darker green, just maybe go along the side while it's wet. And look how beautiful. There you go. Okay, I like that. I put a little darker green on the tip of my brush, and I'm just, as you know, I don't do a lot of detail, but I'm using the tip of my brush there just to add a little. Okay, let's do this petal here. Wash and rinse my brush. Pick up some of our purple. And give us a start. Wash and rinse my brush. You're always making sure you're going in with a damp brush, not totally wet. And then just start. And you can even, like I'm doing here, leave some of that beautiful white space. So pretty. And then one last petal here. There we go. Now I went in with quite a bit darker value because I'm trying to vary my values. And I'm going to go in with, I rinsed my brush and it's just damp. Remember to blot it off. Otherwise you're going to have a huge petal here. And maybe even leave some of the white space there. There we go. So pretty. I'm just kind of pulling it a little bit more. There we go. So pretty, I love it. Okay, do some of these. Just keep picking up that violet paint. And then wash and rinse your brush. Go in. And leave it because it will spread on its own a lot. Maybe tap in a tiny bit with the blue and let that spread on its own like that. Really pretty. Just keep going here. Wash and rinse my brush. Add a little bit of blue with this one. And then wash and rinse my brush. It's just damp. And there we go. Okay, so we're about done here. One last petal. Being a little bit careful so I don't touch this next to it because that's a little wet. Wash and rinse my brush. And look at those beautiful blends, so pretty. Okay, let's go ahead and go in and paint our leaf here. And that's what I always loved so much about these plants. These leaves are so beautiful. They're quite large. Now I'm just going in right now and putting a wash in of my sap green. And then, so this is going to be wet and wet. So what I will do here is maybe add in a little bit. Let's grab just a touch of the lemon yellow and touch in while that's wet and just let it kind of blend. Okay, let's do this one here. So go in with my light wash. This is about 90% water, 10% pigment. And I'm applying a wash here. Just one layer of a very light value. And same here. Okay, because we can build on that light value. I might go in and pick up some of my darker green that I was using up in here and just touch in a little bit. Maybe let it spread. At the base of this one too. Like that. Isn't that lovely? And let's go ahead and paint this one. Same type of colors. So wash and rinse my brush. Pick up that purple, and I think on this one, because it's a tighter bud, I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. Now I've got a lot of water on my brush, so I'm tapping it off. And then this is actually going to be the green petals. So I want to pick up that sap green, point press, and then go ahead and pull our petal down. A little bit of the darker green. Whenever you're working, by the way, with wet and wet, you have to work rather quickly, as you're seeing here. So I'm sorry if this is a little quick. You can always go to your controls, the little gear shift, and slow this down. Point press, back up to the tip, like that. But there's just so much beauty in working with wet and wet because you get these beautiful color blends. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to make this part of the leaf in the back a little bit more vibrant. Let's see what green. Ooh, don't like that green. That's kind of crazy. Let's see what that one is. Yeah, let me find a good green here. I think I might just use my sap green, but a darker value. So this time, instead of 90% water, 10% paint, I'm using the flip-flop of that. 90% pigment, 10% water. And I'm going to go in, I'm point and pressing and using a little bit of the side of my brush, except for where I need that detail. Just using the point of my brush, and then while this is wet, I want to go in, rinse my brush, and again, blending some of that purple with some green, and go in and just tap in, because there's going to be a little bit of a shadow because it's going into the center there, okay? And using the color of that flower just really gives it some coherency. Look at how beautiful that's blending. So let's do the same thing here. Wash and rinse my brush, go into that darker value of sap green, tap off, and let's use the side of our brush because we can cover a lot more space. And then when you get into these tight areas, just use the point of your brush, pick up a little bit more paint, so again, when I use the side of my brush, I can get a much thicker line. There we go. And while it's wet, I'm going to go in and add this mix of the purple and the green. That's so beautiful. And let's let it blend and create these beautiful shadowy effect. If you notice here too, I'm leaving whites in here. So be conscious of that, because I just think it's so pretty. Maybe make it a little bit darker, tap in, just like that. Look how pretty that is, really beautiful. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up here. Wash and rinse my brush, tap it off, pick up that beautiful purple, and let's go in here, point, press if I need a wider line. I'm going to pick up some of that blue too, mix that a little bit in there. So pretty, this blue and this purple together. It's really lovely. Look at that. Let's do these. And I am using a darker value for this bud, like I said, because I feel like it's tighter, so the color might be a little darker. Something like that. And I'm using the point of my brush. This would be a good place. You could actually use this 6 round. Let me grab that because it has a smaller point. I'm going to wash and rinse my brush, pick up some of that pigment. Now look at how dark a value that is. That is a much thicker consistency, because what I'm going to do with that is add in some of these lines. Like that. All right. So we're about done here. I really like this. You can always darken up any of these areas you want by just going back in once it's dry. You can go back in with a darker value. If you look at this value now, this is really more like melted ice cream. Tap off. And I can go in here and darken any areas I might want to. So maybe I want to darken this. Look at that. But you don't want to do this until it's dry. Maybe this one too. Like that. And then wash and rinse my brush. Tap it off on a towel and just go in with plain water and pull that out. Okay. Wash and rinse my brush. Feather out that line, just like that. Now I want to go into this one real quick, because if If I wait too long, it's going to be too dry. Just keep washing and rinsing my brush. And I want to leave this somewhat white, so there's some contrast between this petal and this one. You can always go in and dab in a little bit of that blue. Really pretty. Okay. Now this is getting quite dark, which is fine. Just keep washing, rinsing my brush. Wash, rinse my brush. Again, I want to keep that white area, so look at how beautiful that is. And you could go in and add more of this detail if I want to mix that green, sap green, with a tiny bit of that purple. And I could go in and add in some little lines like this. And there you go. Okay? Alrighty. Thanks so much, everyone. I will see those of you that are joining me next week in my hummingbird class, and I will list all my supplies here for you. Thank you so much.